It's Ramsey, Dewey, and Xiao over here at the Extreme Fight Club. Well, on the couch of the Extreme Fight Lab, not club, because we're scientists, not clubbers. And Xiao had his second amateur kickboxing match just recently, and he won in very impressive style. And we're going to watch and comment on that fight today. So, let's get right into it.
Couch on the coach.
The coach on the couch.
Couch on the couch.
Some people are confused about that, and they write me a letter and they say, "Hey, couch, I have a question for you." I'm like, "This is the couch. This is the coach." There's a subtle but important difference.
Yeah, you don't even address it in the comments, like you're so used to it now.
Alright, so let's take a look at the fight. Xiao is in the yellow and black Bruce Lee style rash guard. And he was making the Bruce Lee sounds. He goes out with a flurry of kicks. A lot of moving in and out. The Taekwondo double kick. We used to call those butterfly kicks. Not to be confused with the wushu butterfly kicks. High kick. And it's a pretty simple strategy you had. This guy you were fighting had kind of a fairly traditional kickboxing style. And your game plan was kick him and move out. Kick him and move out. Kick him and move out. And if you get too close, clinch up with him, break, and then kick him some more.
The clinching was improvised in the moment.
There's that tornado kick. Looks like it kind of landed on his shoulder there.
Something like that. At this point, I'm still gauging his reactions. What's he going to do? He wasn't doing much, so I was anxious. Is he saving up for some big move that he has to charge up the bar for? And then I realized he actually just doesn't know how to deal with this style.
Yeah, I think he was anticipating a much more close-range fight.
Indeed. Look at his close guard.
See, a lot of guys at the amateur level, they never deal with head kicks.
Yeah.
A lot of them lack the flexibility to do the head kicks in the first place, and their training partners do. And they never throw the head kicks at each other.
He dealt with the head kicks pretty well, though.
They don't use side kicks or spinning hook kicks or turning back kicks or any of that.
They're not taught. A lot of these people start as adults. They never got that flexibility.
There's another high side kick right there. And we never really got a chance to see his boxing. I think, from my perspective, he was looking to throw some punches. He's doing some right there, and you tie up with him. And some people might notice, I'm reffing this match. Is that a conflict of interest? Yes, it is. It absolutely is. But for this particular event, I was the only one qualified and knowledgeable on reffing, kickboxing, and boxing matches, and so I reffed all the boxing and the kickboxing matches.
Hey, he punched it after catching my kick in the second round, which you didn't even take a point away, so I think you were...
There's the rules, and then there's the rules. So the rules of this particular match was striking, no holding and striking, no dirty boxing, no clinch fighting. And the ring girls are dressed like green aliens of some type. I don't know what.
Spawns of Satan.
What were they wearing? It was like these weird straps with like cell phone holders all over the place and belts. And I don't know what the heck those were. But like some ring girls, like the objective is to look sexy, and these ones were just like, the heck is going on here? I don't understand it. But again, Xiao, something you said after the fight was that you were like playing a character. Playing the character of Bruce Lee. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's kind of what I always did since I started training, because I was influenced by Bruce Lee's looks and his movements from video games.
Yeah, and again, this guy wants a close-range fight, but anytime he gets in there, yeah, that's the moment he caught the kick and threw the punch.
I did give him a hook punch in the clinch.
I did issue the warning, no holding, but he doesn't even speak English. And that time he catches the kick, but doesn't punch.
Yeah, that's why I switched to punching. I realized he's catching on to the kicking. Gotta give him some new looks.
Yeah. And you didn't do much boxing, and you're not a bad boxer either. Like you definitely could have boxed with this guy, but
I'll outbox him, I think.
But you chose to stick with the kicking game primarily here.
I got lazy.
Fake the overhand, go for a body kick. And you did a really good job of keeping him guessing whether it's a high kick or a low kick, which Nice side kick knocked him across the cage there. And that really paid off in the end.
Yeah, keep
That
overloading
spinning
his
hook
brain.
kick knockdown. And so I showed a clip of the end where you knock him down with the spinning hook kick, and some people were like, "How did he not see that coming?" Well, it's because you spent the previous 3 rounds programming the guy to doing stuff like that, the turning back kick, which looks a whole lot like a spinning hook kick, the setup. And so when you start to spin, he doesn't know if you're going high or low, and since most of the spinning stuff you're throwing is going to the body, he's programmed to lower the hands and defend the body. And this is a really classic low-high, high-low strategy that kickboxers have been using for ages.
Yeah, that's what striking is all about.
See, a lot of people, they want like an easy little step, like do this one thing and it's going to win you the fight. But the fact of the matter is, it takes time to set up your movements in a fight.
So it's up to the individual to figure out what works for him or her and what does not. It differs for everyone.
Yeah, like a lot of people love watching highlights of boxing matches, like 12-round boxing matches that end with a cool knockout. And they just focus on the knockout, not the 12 rounds that led up to it. You know, the 12 rounds of programming the guy to respond the way they needed them to in order to land that big shot. So we're in round 3 here, I believe?
Yes, round 3 just started.
Yeah.
Also wearing the guy down.
Yeah,
so his technique becomes less perfect.
You were landing a lot of leg kicks, including side kicks to the leg right above the knee.
Yeah.
And you weren't being nice about that either. With the leg kick right there.
I can't always go for the leg kick because I'll get checked if I just spam
Yeah.
it.
So you were doing a really nice job of varying the levels of the kicks. And another thing you said about this fight is that you were kind of bored with it.
I'm not bored, but I think I went for a boring approach of playing it safe, not taking 0 risks.
Yeah, you played a very low-risk game. I mean, from the audience perspective, it looked cool because you're doing all the spinning kicks and stuff. But from your perspective, you're playing it safe. You know, in and out, in and out. Go to the range where you can't get hit. You know, hit him from a distance. And you had
at this point, I think he's
the
real.
shin guard was coming off right here, so we had to fix that.
At this stage, I think the opponent is getting tired, and he's engaging in some clinching too. When I get in boxing range.
Yeah. Yeah, because now it's not just about you know, he wants to hit you when you get that close. He wants the break now. He's like, stop kicking me. I don't want to get kicked right here. So yeah, he's initiating the tie-up now, whereas in the first 2 rounds, you were initiating the tie-up.
Yeah, here I let out a flurry, and then, he reaches out for the
exactly.
clinch.
He tied up right there.
Here it comes.
Oh, spinning hook kick knockdown right here. Yeah, you cut a little bit right there because I was giving him the 10 count.
I used all of the camera
angles.
angles.
Used all the angles. Okay.
This one deserves a lot of replays.
So I run over there, I start giving him the count.
Dang, he got up fast.
And I wanted to stop it, but he was like, I can continue. He looked cognizant, you know, he's responding to my cues, so, you know, gotta let it continue. But there's just seconds left in the match, and you knock him across.
His legs are not
with
entirely steady, I think. Look at this.
Yeah, I mean, there were like 5 seconds left in the match, so, let him be a warrior, as Mario Yamasaki would say. And I listened to the speech you gave at the end there, and
oh, thanks.
That was cool, man. That was cool. Like, I got a question from a viewer a while back, and they said something along the lines of, do you just focus on training professionals? And the answer is no. Like, when I lived back in the U.S., my focus was training professionals, right? But I train some pros right now, but, you know, honestly, most of what I do is group classes with people who have no intention of being a professional fighter, who just want to get out there and train, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's awesome. And yeah, Xiao said some really cool things.
刘翔，你有什么要说的？我先感谢我的对手给我这次比赛的机会。我希望我45岁的时候也和他一样棒。能够这次在 Punch Cage 比赛，让我非常荣幸。我要感谢我的每一个训练伙伴，和我吃宵夜的锅、陆叶和奶茶，和我打实战的扎他太多了，我数不清。Thank you guys for sharpening me into the fighter I am today. And a special thank you to my coach, Ramsey Dewey, the best fucking combat sports coach in the world. Better than Faraz Zahabi. Better than Tony Whitman. Ramsey, you are my Mr. Miyagi. I love you.
The end right here.
I'll post the original fight video with audio in the comment section so that you guys can check out the fight with audio.
Link.
And the horrible music that the Punch Cage bar was playing.
Yeah, they played this music really loud, like the whole time during the fights of this event, which I hated. I think all the fighters hated it too. You can't hear your cornermen with the music playing.
Oh, nobody's cornering anyone. Last time we were able to shout some instructions from the corner.
Yeah.
And anyways, the original video will be there so you can hear the live crowd, which got drowned out by the music a little bit in my post-fight speech, if you want. And
but as I was saying though, like, is being a coach all about training pro fighters and getting big wins and making it to the UFC? No, it's about making a difference in the lives of people who matter. And so when Xiao said the things that he said in that speech, I was like, oh man, got me right in the feels. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Man. I appreciate you, Coach.
That's why I do what I do.
Also, I tend to believe that being professional is just a title. Most professional fighters cannot make ends meet, and they still got to figure out what to do in life, as most amateurs do. And professionals, some of them go a few years without competing too, just to, like Hu Yaozong, didn't he take a few years to drop down in weight class and polish his skills?
Yeah, man. That dude, like, he went from being, like, you know, big and thick and kind of fluffy to really chiseled. And man, that dude is super athletic looking now.
Combat sports is one of those sports where the newbiest amateur and very seasoned professional, they all train in the same room. That would never happen in, say, soccer or basketball, but it happens in combat sports.
That is weird. Like, you go to, like, a lot of combat sports gyms are like this. You'll have like a couple of UFC fighters, you'll have jiu-jitsu black belts, you'll have complete noobs and casuals all in the same room taking the same classes. Like we just finished a jiu-jitsu class and you know we've got our black belt coach and then we had like 3 brown belts, 2 purple belts and a bunch of white belts all in the same room and you know very different levels, skill levels as far as jiu-jitsu, but you know we're all learning the same technique, practicing the same technique, and then rolling with each other, learning important lessons afterward. And, you know, there's a lot to say about that. It's cool. I enjoy it. Yeah, combat sports is weird in that regard. But what you're saying about pro fighters, man, this is something a lot of young guys don't know. Pro fighting doesn't come with a retirement plan. Like it's a weird job. Like if you spend 40 years you know, teaching school or something, yeah, you get a pension or whatever afterward. At least in some countries. But if you spend your prime years as a professional fighter, and then you end up broken and broke afterward, there's no retirement plan. So the fact of the matter is you got to do a lot more than just pro fighting. Like most pro fighters don't make enough money off of pro fighting to pay basic bills. So most of the pro fighters I've known, including myself when I was fighting professionally, work additional jobs. They cannot afford to dedicate all of their time to training. And another thing I would say to pro fighters, get an education. A lot of people are shocked how so many UFC fighters have bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. And they're like, what? These guys are smart? Well, they should be, because you have a short shelf life as a fighter. Like you really do. And so you need a contingency plan for when you have to hang up the gloves, which you inevitably will. Anyway, this video is kind of going in a very different direction than just reviewing Xiao's fight, but you brought it up, so I thought I'd comment on it.
Important subject.
Yeah. So, yeah, any other thoughts about the fight? Well, let's talk about Bruce Lee just a little bit, because like we joke around about Bruce Lee a lot, and you have a sense of humor about it, but sometimes occasionally you wax very serious, and you quote Bruce Lee, and you emulate him, and
He inspired me, man.
Yeah.
He taught me how to be a Chinese person in America. He taught me how to seek the medicine for my own sufferings, or at least try. And when I read about his life experiences, I realized we share a lot in common. We're both troubled Cantonese young men who are stuck between East and West. Oh, I can go on. But yeah, he's a major inspiration for me. And I realized how much rejection he faced in his 20s, and how late he found success in life, which makes his death even more tragic.
Yeah,
he passed so early.
How old was he? Like 32?
30, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And that was just like, I mean, he was a big kung fu movie megastar for like just a couple of years before he died.
But he's on the verge of Hollywood superstardom.
Yeah.
Like, he did not live to see the grand opening of Enter the Dragon.
That's true. Yeah, he never really saw the fruits of his own labors, if you will.
That was his goal all along, to be a superstar in the West.
Yeah.
Like, Hong Kong cinema wasn't that big back then.
That's true. I was talking to Johnny earlier today. Johnny's a guy in the jiu-jitsu class, Chinese guy, a big guy. We were talking about kung fu movies, and there was this old Jackie Chan movie. It was called something like Eagle Claw and Snake Style, where Jackie Chan combines the Eagle Claw style with the Snake Style to make the ultimate kung fu style by also combining it with the movements of a cat, which is hilarious when you say it out loud. But yeah, we were reminiscing about that for a while, and I was just surprised that like a Chinese person from across the globe, from where I grew up, and myself, like, grew up watching the same movie. You know, this old 1970s Hong Kong kung fu film.
Most Chinese people did not. I did not. I'm more familiar with the mainstream films from Jackie Chan and Donnie Yen and maybe Jet Li.
That's why it was so shocking.
Johnny's an esoteric person for sure.
He is. Like Johnny's, he's a kung fu guy who actually knows how to use functional kung fu. Like, I do this thing sometimes in the boxing class where we get the kicking pads as shields and the pool noodles as swords, and we do sword and shield fighting. Because, have you ever done this, or?
I've done it with you, but not in a class with the others.
Yeah, and Johnny came to the boxing class once, and he got one of these really low kung fu stances. Like, one of these ones where it looks ornamental. Except, with the sword and shield, it was like, wait a minute, that's what that's for. That's functional. He's made himself the smallest possible target and put himself in a position to attack the legs and the torso without getting hit back. And so you see these goofy-looking kung fu forms in the right context with the right weapon. They make a lot of sense. And yeah, Johnny's way into that. But again, that's the exception, not the norm for Chinese people in the modern world. Like, there's a stereotype that everybody in China is kung fu fighting. No, they're not. They're not. Everybody in China is like sending their kids to school doing math all day long. And,
that's a good song, though.
Yeah. Doing homework and studying and getting boring jobs. And I don't know.
Athletics is not respected in Chinese school, Chinese education, and by Chinese parents. It's like the norm here is you either become an athlete sponsored and trained by the Commie Party and most likely discarded like trash when you don't make it into the Olympics, or you study 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and take exams, get a boring job.
Yeah, like both at the Olympic Training Center and the major sports universities in China, the cutoff system is very strict and very rigid. Essentially, they want to they go out and recruit kids with promising athletic attributes and
makes them supposedly good at certain sports.
Yeah, and then they
Supposedly.
overtime cut out the kids who just don't qualify, aren't making the what's the word I'm looking for? They don't meet the standards, and so they'll go through these phases where they cut them out and so on. And that's kind of funny. Even a famous fighter like Elong, for example, he went through the sport university system, and he was cut from the program fairly early on, but thanks to his marketing ability, was able to continue his fighting career and have success with that.
He's playing a character too.
Yeah, he played a character.
Not so much himself, but
he did the Shaolin monk persona, exactly. But yeah, it's kind of what you did with the whole Bruce Lee persona to make those fights very exciting.
But that's still authentic to me. I think in modern day, like being a Bruce Lee clone is, I don't know, it's kind of vintage because it's been long enough. But in the 80s and 90s, it's a bit cringe.
Yeah. Yeah, there was this one dude, this African American guy, who he would do these kickboxing matches. I don't remember his name, but I used to be able to see his videos on YouTube all the time. I don't know if they're still
Glory or K1, and he has a yellow jumpsuit too.
Yes, that's the guy. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, he
and
has
fight
like a
southpaw stance, even though he was a right-handed fighter, and he tried to emulate Bruce Lee, and sometimes it would work out, and sometimes it wouldn't.
The one fight I've seen of him, it didn't work out. It seems like he's super susceptible to low kick.
Yeah,
it's like his stance.
He had that side stance.
I only saw one of his fights. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. But it seems that his side stance is really stuck in place. He only has that side stance.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, even Bruce
he
Lee
was more concerned about emulating the Bruce Lee he saw in the movies than emulating what Bruce Lee actually taught.
But that was not how Bruce Lee moved in the movies. In the movies, Bruce Lee's stance was very fluid.
Yeah. I guess what
his interpretation.
Yeah, it's his interpretation. People watch a movie, people watch an event, they remember a certain thing, and they try to reproduce it, and then it's not at all like the real thing, but they think it is. I mean, it's how we are, because our eyes aren't cameras. Our memory isn't photorealistic. It's not. And so we all have this version of Bruce Lee inside of us. And we're like, no, Bruce Lee's like this, not like that. We're like, no, my Bruce Lee isn't like that, he's like this.
A lot of things.
People are like this about Bruce Lee, they're like this about Jesus, they're like this about... Yeah, seriously, my Jesus never said that. Well, it's in the Bible, not my Bible. Yeah.
That's a good example to bring up.
Yeah, Bruce Lee is like the martial arts Jesus for a lot of people.
Kind of is.
Yeah, kind of. Which is why some people get so mad when you suggest that he was anything less than perfect. So... how good was Bruce Lee?
It doesn't matter. He never claimed to be that good. But it seems to me that he had some fantastic athletic attributes, especially for his low-ish weight. He probably would have been a formidable competitor in the flyweight or even bantamweight division. Although the bantamweights nowadays are so much bigger than Bruce Lee.
He would have... I mean,
he also
at his weight, he walked around about 135. I mean, he changed weight a little bit later in his life, but averaged about 135, something like that. So he would have cut down to an even smaller division.
It's rumored that he was 160 pounds at one point, but he's like, no, that's too much for me. But that's a rumor. I'm not sure if it's true.
Yeah, it was rumored he put on some weight, bulked up for Enter the Dragon, but he was really lean in that movie. So I don't know if that's true.
He has ridiculously fast metabolism, or so they say. But he also doesn't have the knowledge of modern day. My one disappointment with him would be that his boxing doesn't look as slick as I hoped it would be, despite there being very advanced boxers in his generation, and he's very much aware and an admirer of Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And his grappling isn't so slick
There's
either.
a big difference between an admirer, somebody who practices, and an actual competitive boxer. Bruce Lee, he did a boxing match as a teenager in high school. Yeah, it was like a
1 round.
Yeah, 1 round match. He ended up winning the decision over Gary Elms, and people glorify this like it was like the Hong Kong National Championships. It was a high school boxing match between a couple of kids. And if you watch, if you see pictures of this, because there are some photographs, there's no video, but photographs, you see like Bruce Lee with his hand down by his hip, and he's winging like crazy windmill punches, and their footwork's all over the place. They're a couple of kids, and people get mad because again, Bruce Lee's their Jesus, and so they're like, "How dare you suggest this was anything less than an Olympic-level boxing match? Nay, above an Olympic-level boxing match. This was a clash of the titans." No, it was a couple of kids, and yeah, he had a lot to learn about boxing.
Which reminds me of your video a long time ago about Bruce Lee's fight with Wang Jackman being his first real fight.
Yeah.
As in, not a street fight with a street person, but a fight with a somewhat trained martial artist. He
Yeah,
won
like
in dominant.
first organized fight, if you will.
He won in dominant fashion, sure, but it led him to not be satisfied with his training and skill set.
Yeah, and a lot of people will dispute that and say, "Well, if he won the fight, why would that move him to want to change?" Like,
It didn't play out like he envisioned.
because it didn't play out. The movie didn't play out in real life the way it did in his head.
Didn't probably realize the slick wing trim parrying and perfect hand trapping. Just
Yeah, it reminds me of a
Doesn't work like
conversation
that.
I had with one of these guys, one of the white belt guys in the jiu-jitsu class afterward, and I roll with him every jiu-jitsu class, and he's making gradual progress as anybody who trains does, but afterwards he's always like, "Oh man, I feel so frustrated because there's so many things I can't do." And I said, "Look, here's a secret. There's so many things I can't do either." So when I roll, when I do jiu-jitsu, when I fight, when I do any sort of combat sport, most of the things I want to do are not possible because there's another person in this equation and they're fighting back and they are preventing me from doing all the cool things I want to do, from playing out the movie playing in my mind. So I have to, instead of focusing on what I can't do, focus on what I can. So before this fight with Wang Jackman, Bruce Lee is going in there with this idea, "I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, it's going to be awesome, it's going to be..." And then it's not like that at all, and it turns into kind of a rough around the edges schoolyard scrap where they clinch up and fall on the ground and tumble around a little bit and throw sloppy punches at each other.
I think he wasn't happy with his cardio either.
Yeah, and he got tired afterward, and he made it a point after that to be the best athlete he could because he realized, "I'm not as tough as I thought I was." Man, this could have gone south at any moment if the stars had aligned differently, if you will.
That was a fairly new idea back then. Like, back then, leading men did not take off their shirts,
Yeah,
show off their body.
and even the very few who did, like Tony Curtis in what was that Gladiator movie, Spartacus. They weren't chiseled. They were just like, average guy who is reasonably physically fit, but no muscle striations, no big bulging biceps.
Back then, leading men just have to, I don't know, look tough, have this demeanor, have this charisma, which is highly arbitrary.
Yeah.
Western cowboys fanning the hammer of their revolvers.
And then Bruce Lee shows up, this little Asian dude who is just ripped to the gills, takes off his shirt, and they're like, "That's new. Normal people don't look like that.
No, they don't.
Should I look like that? I'm feeling insecure
People-
about myself now. What's
people
going
don't
on?"
Work out so much back then.
Yeah, it's true, especially for aesthetic. I mean, bodybuilders did. And Bruce Lee drew a lot of inspiration from bodybuilders in his day. So if you look at the few gym cards that exist, because they used to keep gym cards back in the day, you would go to a gym, you'd get a card, you write down your program, what you were going to do, and then what you actually accomplished afterward. And, Bruce Lee's gym cards are very bodybuilder based. He'd do things like the French press and all this to try to grow the triceps. And you see that in his physique as well. Like, it's a very, I focus on this muscle striation, this muscle striation. Yeah.
After Bruce Lee, Charles Bronson started taking off his shirt. Did Steve McQueen do the same? A lot of them did. Which reminds me, do you remember?
Now it's obligatory in movies, especially Marvel movies.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to I think it's like in the contract of actors for the Disney Marvel Corporation that they have to get into shape with visible striations in their abs, because there's like one obligatory shirtless scene, even if there's no reason for it to happen.
One time, didn't you talk about how this male actor, although he wasn't playing a tough guy, action guy in the film, and he doesn't have shirtless things, he still worked out?
Yeah, like, who was it? Tom Hiddleston, I think it was. Played Loki in the Marvel movies. Same thing, even though Loki's not supposed to be like this physically imposing guy. I mean, he spent a bunch of time in the gym, working with personal trainers, trying to get as physically fit as he could, because, you know, he's in a superhero movie, so you just gotta do it. Back in the day, nobody cared. It didn't even enter people's minds. So, Bruce Lee, man. Bruce Lee. So, Xiao, you're 2-0 right now in amateur kickboxing. You went out there and did a thing that most humans will never do. What do you think? Is there going to be a fight number 3?
Yeah, most likely. I don't know how long I will keep fighting. I feel respected and loved. And before my last fight, before my first fight, I just thought, oh man, I'm so weak and fat, and if I don't put every ounce of my effort into preparing for this, I will regret it after. But after the fight, I realized it's not so much about that, but I had my teammates who either fought on the same card or were supporting me all along. Some of them came to the event itself, and I realized I was respected and loved in the small microcosm of a world that is this gym. And that's not a common condition in my life. But then...
Yeah, a lot of people go through their whole lives without feeling that, man.
Yeah, so maybe I should be more grateful. But then I was pondering, maybe I'm overvaluing that because a lot of my friends have left the gym, have left the life of training behind since then. And the victory last weekend was a bit of a hollow victory for me because two of my friends in particular are probably going to be leaving the gym for good due to some changes in work and whatnot. And
yeah,
I was having a crush on this girl that competed in the jiu-jitsu bout before my fight, and it looks like it's going to be unrequited.
Too bad, man.
And I'm thinking about what I should do about my future too, beyond fighting and training. So yeah, it's a weird time for me.
These are good points you're bringing up, because a lot of people out there, especially a lot of young men, they have this idea, and I know this because I had this idea as a young man: if I learn how to fight, if I win fights, I'll gain the respect of others, and then I'll be happy. And this is a really dangerous thing to tell
Never
ourselves.
thought that.
Then I'll be happy.
Okay, I'll expand on that a bit. It reminds me, one time one of my professors, just for fun, was asking everyone in class, what's your dream car? The answers popping up are the usual Aston Martins, Lamborghinis, Porsches. And when it came my turn, I was like Toyota 86, Mazda MX-5, or Honda S2000, and the whole class went quiet. The thing is, I had...
The street racing cars?
They're affordable sports cars that you can afford to, like, drive hard on the track and still maintain, and easy enough to fix. Or some of those other cars, they're just vanity items that...
Yeah.
Here's the thing. The people who gave those answers, they are not into cars. They haven't put as much effort, time, and money into motorsports as I did. But they just think... They like the idea of having this prestigious sports car, and they don't even understand the pros and cons of those cars. Like, even performance-wise, they don't understand what those cars do well and don't do well, and they never factor in the maintenance that will come. The maintenance isn't just about money. For argument's sake, let's just assume they have the money, but the headache that will go into like, is this mechanic going to be competent enough to fix this
They just hear the
Lamborghini
brand
that I
name, you see
have?
stores, yeah.
That's a major headache, even if they have sufficient money to pay for it. And I think a lot of people just get this idea that this prestigious car or this big house or these fashionable clothes and handbags are going to make me happy, make me whole. But hey, guess what? They don't know how to drive. They're going to get beaten on the racetrack by Hondas and Mazdas and Toyotas that have like a fourth of their horsepower. When they get a big house, they have to clean it.
Yeah.
And if they are empty inside, they're not going to find the right people to fill that big house with them. If they're ugly and don't know how to like match their clothing styles, they're still going to be ugly even with the expensive, prestigious accessories and clothing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
These are good points. And if you
they're
have a
not-
house that's so big it takes you 10 minutes to walk across to get to the other side, guess what? That's 10 minutes out of your day you're not getting back.
Yeah, and if they're not happy with themselves or not good at loving other people or being loved, a pretty girl or I don't know, an ideal mate will probably not make them happy either. Oh.
Man, you're waxing deep today, Xiao. I thought we were just going to watch a fight and suddenly we're talking about life's big issues.
It always goes off track.
It always goes off track. In a good way, though.
I don't mind it.
Well, you're spitting some wisdom here, man. Spitting some wisdom. That's like a metaphor for life, really. Like in life, we think, we tell ourselves we need the big fancy brand name, the big fancy car, etc. But the reality is, what's going to get you there to the destination is more often than not what you never even expected.
But I'm not spitting wisdom. I'm really talking about where I'm confused.
Yeah.
I hope I can be less confused.
That's okay. That's the beginning of wisdom, man. The beginning of wisdom is understanding what you don't understand.
Asking the questions.
Yeah, it's asking the questions, saying, "Hey, I'm confused. I don't know." I don't know is the beginning of wisdom. It's not saying, "I am the fount of knowledge. Hearken to my voice." No, man. It's saying, "I don't know. Let's try to figure this out." Well, that's why you won that fight, man. Because you showed up to this gym with an open mind, but also with a plan, if you will.
Did I?
Sort of. Here's what I mean by a plan. Like, we've talked about this a number of times, how you have a very specific fighting style, kind of a karate, taekwondo, jeet kune do sort of mishmash of movement that doesn't mesh very well with your average Muay Thai coach.
Yeah.
And if a guy like Xiao goes to the average combat sports gym, immediately people start yelling them saying, "Hey, you're right-handed, stop using the southpaw stance, stop doing that Bruce Lee crap, stop doing side kicks, and stop doing everything you're good at," basically. And I never once said that to Xiao. Why? Because I experienced the exact same thing coming from a Taekwondo background, as a Taekwondo black belt, 10 years in Taekwondo, and I go to a Muay Thai gym, and what do they tell me? Forget everything you know, you suck, you don't know anything, don't do anything you're good at. And it's like, this isn't constructive, this isn't helpful. This is holding me back, this is paralyzing me with fear, basically. And I made it a goal, I'm not going to do that to my students. I'm going to help them excel at what they're good at and add on top of their game, instead of trying to take away what they have and then replace that with a carbon copy of me, because that's just stupid, because everybody isn't me. They're not supposed to be me. I want them to be better than me. Anyway, that's where I'm coming from.
So it's not, the styles are often not mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I'm open to learning more traditional, if you will, styles and techniques. And you taught me a lot of conventional wisdom in striking, such as getting the outside foot as a southpaw, the importance of using my left side, being ambidextrous,
Yeah.
the
So a lot of right-handed southpaws suck, which is why so many coaches are like, switch to orthodox, but they suck as orthodox too. And a lot of coaches don't know how to teach a southpaw. They don't know how to coach a southpaw. They don't understand southpaw technique. I do, because I've spent many, many years working with southpaw coaches and training with southpaw fighters and fighting and competing and sparring with southpaws. And so it's something I'm very familiar with. And so I know what to do with a southpaw, and I know what to do with a fake southpaw, a right-handed southpaw, if you will. And if somebody's just really comfortable fighting from that position, even though normally I do understand why a coach would encourage a right-handed person, hey, fight from an orthodox stance, but sometimes you don't need to. You don't need to always follow that same path. Now, if it's a guy who's just like switching stance constantly for no reason, you got to nip that in the bud and say, hey, when you switch a stance, when you stand in a particular way, you need a reason for that. Like, never do anything in a fight that you don't have a good reason for. And if you're just switching stance at random to try to confuse the guy, you are the one who is confused.
Yes. Yes. I think beyond the mechanical familiarity with proficiency with each stance is as important is the understanding of open and closed stances, and where the striking targets and vulnerabilities in your own defense change in open and closed stances.
Yeah, and this is something that's addressed constantly in the sport of Taekwondo. At least it was when I was doing Taekwondo, like way back when, like 20 years ago.
Way back when Donald Trump isn't getting black
Way
belts.
back before Donald Trump was the most highly ranked honorary Taekwondo black belt in the world. Like, what happened to Taekwondo? Taekwondo used to be a serious martial art. And some people are watching this right now, some young guys like, Taekwondo used to be, that's a joke, right? And then we have guys like Sensei Seth. I love Sensei Seth. He's a great guy, and he makes these comedy videos where he makes jokes about Taekwondo being safe space karate, and I'm like, and from my perspective, like, I don't understand this safe space karate thing, because that's not what I grew up with in Taekwondo. But looking at modern Taekwondo schools, I'm like, that's what Seth is making fun of, not the Taekwondo I know, which really should have a different name. Like, it's not the same martial art anymore.
But a lot of Taekwondo practitioners still can do individual skills amazingly. I envy them.
Yeah.
And especially a lot of kids who grew up practicing Taekwondo, they gain a level of dexterity that may not be as easily achievable for someone who starts later, but they are just, it's such an unfinished style. It's such a shame.
It is, man. Well, what are we going to do with Taekwondo in the modern world? Let's talk about Trump for a minute. Because, again, some people ask my opinion on this, and he got promoted to an honorary 9th degree black belt, which is the highest rank that anyone outside of, like, the leader of the Kwon in South Korea can hold. I guess there's only one 10th degree Taekwondo black belt, and the highest rank is 9th degree. And Trump, who's never trained in Taekwondo, receives this honorary rank. It's like a photo op opportunity or something.
He's really going to kick Biden's butt now.
I guess. He's a pro wrestler, technically. He's a 9th degree Taekwondo black belt, technically. Former president of the United States.
For whatever that's worth in combat sports.
Multi-billionaire industrialist, whatever he was. I don't know how he made his money. What has Trump not done, man? What has he not done?
Yeah, the modern renaissance man.
So, should we be mad about Trump getting an honorary black belt? I mean, it's an honorary black belt. We understand an honorary black belt isn't the same as a black belt you earn through blood, sweat, and tears. We understand that. We understand it's just a formality. It's here you go. Here's your black belt. Let's snap some pictures now. But I'm not mad about it. I'm not. I guess a lot of people are, because they've been working their whole lives to get much lesser degrees, and They've sustained lots of injuries and so on.
I'm entertained but disappointed.
That's a good way to phrase it. Entertained but disappointed.
I'll sidetrack this a bit and talk about Taekwondo. It seems to me that the Taekwondo rules are taking out all the elements of fighting that can threaten a good kicker. So I use a lot of kicking. What am I afraid of? Getting punched in the face, getting my kicks checked that it hurts my legs, getting my kicks caught.
Yeah, the Olympic rules definitely did that. They took away most of the attacks that can threaten a good kicker.
Getting leg kicked so much or so hard, or both, that my legs are no longer functional for kicking and movement, two essential skills for
this reminds me so much of a little conversation I had in the comment section of one of Kwon Kicker's videos. He's been doing this great series on like the power era of Taekwondo techniques, and he did a video on elbows, the elbows of Taekwondo, and a lot of people in the comments were like, "What? Taekwondo has elbows?" And yeah, Taekwondo has this whole syllabus of movements that don't exist in Olympic style sparring. It's like, and the comment I left was that Taekwondo has like the in and out secret menu of techniques. There's the stuff that's advertised, the regular hamburgers, and then the secret menu animal style burgers, if you will.
Oh, I miss some animal fries.
Oh yeah, In-N-Out Burger.
Oh, I eat there all the time. I'm a Californian.
They used to have this fake In-N-Out Burger here in Shanghai that was awesome because it was exactly like the real thing. They plagiarized everything down to the details.
What happened to that?
They got sued. And they had to close, which sucked because they were amazing. And In-N-Out has not opened up shop here in Shanghai. But fake Chinese In-N-Out was like the best thing in Shanghai for the longest time. And I'm so sad that it closed.
Me too.
Yeah. But Taekwondo, it has this secret menu of techniques that like all the old school guys practiced and were proficient in, like the elbows and the punches and the knees and even takedowns and throws and sweeps and stuff like that, but never was actually practiced in competition. And so it creates this weird dichotomy because in most martial arts, people are really limited to what they spar with. So if you only ever did the Olympic style sparring, you never practiced with the elbows, even if they were taught in the forms. You never practiced with the grappling. You never practiced with the takedowns. You never practiced the knees, etc. Although you went through the motions doing all this stuff in the forms, but yeah. So some of the old school guys know this stuff and have a certain level of competence in it, but most of the new school guys just simply don't. And again, there are a lot of young guys who are like 3rd degree black belts, 4th degree black belts in Taekwondo now, and they're still like, what? Taekwondo has elbows? I had no idea there was even a Korean word for that.
Even the old school guys didn't spar like that a lot, right?
Yeah.
I'm not very proficient in elbows because I never got elbow pads and sparred with them.
Yeah.
Jock got some elbow pads recently, and I can see him getting a lot more proficient with elbows just because he used them.
Yeah, just because you go through the motions in sparring.
But sparring probably does the most to increase proficiency in a skill for applicable combat, at least. But at the end of the day, kickboxing is kickboxing.
Mm-hmm.
There are Muay Thai fighters. For example, Samart Payakaru, considered by many to be the greatest Muay Thai fighter of all time, has a style that's very atypical to Muay Thai. And what is Muay Thai anyways? Thailand is just a country that is crazy about kickboxing and betting on it and spectating it.
Yeah, there's so many other Southeast Asian kickboxing styles like Kwon Gyokdo in Korea. What is that? It's basically Muay Thai, Korean Muay Thai. There's like Pradol Saray, there's Khmer boxing, there's Letway, and all these other foreign Asian words for basically Muay Thai. Yeah.
Kung Fu variations.
Yeah.
Like Sanda is a very distinctive style, but it really is just a rule set.
Yeah, mostly, because of the rule
set. Muay Thai is a rule set.
Because, if you go for a clinch, you have to immediately seek for a throw. The throws have to be done where the The fighter initiating the throw remains on the feet while the other guy goes down in order to score points. And so it looks a very specific way. And it looks importantly different from Muay Thai, that allows the clinching and the dirty boxing and the elbows and the knees and so on that don't exist in Sanda, right?
Also cultural tendencies like the Thai fighters favoring of leg kicks and elbows and just repeatedly blasting round kicks.
Yeah.
And Sanda fighters' fondness of side kicking.
Yes.
These are culturally embedded, I think.
Indeed. But also like the side kicks of Sanda really do help to set up the wrestling techniques, which consequently are illegal in Muay Thai. And so there's this weird dichotomy that, like, when was it, like 15 years ago, China had its first invitational Muay Thai versus Sanda event, and you can watch this on YouTube. And I think what happened, most of the Sanda guys ended up losing their fights, and then the Chinese coaches were like, let's start doing what they're doing and add it to our game. So if you go to like any major sports university and see the way the Sanda fighters train here in China, it's not competitive kung fu. It's a hybrid of training in boxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, judo, what else? Taekwondo. Yeah, Taekwondo is a big part of Sanda training here. And, a few of the Sanda camps I've been to will sometimes train in a style like Tai Chi, Tai Chi Chuan, or one did a lot of Kyokushin karate training as well. And a lot of people are confused, like, most of those aren't Chinese martial arts. Well, isn't this supposed to be competitive kung fu? Originally, that was supposed to be the idea, but it's a different sport now. Essentially, the coaches had this idea, hey, what do we do if we want to win fights? We become the best possible fighters we can within this specific rule set, as opposed to trying to uphold a specific tradition.
Well, what an amazing idea. Why didn't anyone think of that before?
I know, right? It's like, do what works, discard what doesn't. Who said that before?
Yeah, I wonder.
Pretty much everybody who knows how to fight said that. That's who.
Yeah, indeed.
Including, but not limited to, a certain man whose last name is Lee and first name is Bruce. So
He popularized that idea, but it's
he
been
definitely
around forever.
popularized it. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. All right, guys. I'm getting tired, and I'm going to go home. But before I do, I got one more thing to say. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train. Brought to you by xmarshall.com. Use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything. That's xmarshall.com. High quality training gear and fight apparel. And since everybody always asks, if you have questions that you want answers to, just leave them in the comments below. I read your comments, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy this groovy music. Now get out there and train.